Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome to TK's Brew podcast. Your co-host Thomas Mascorro right here in the house. We're gonna do a little bit of an interview, kind of dive in a little bit to my background and get to know me a little bit. So let's do this, guys. Where are you from? So, I was born in Austin, Texas, and around 2005, at the age of 10, we located, me and my family, to San Marcos. And pretty much that's where I grew up for the majority of my life. That's pretty much all that I knew. I went to middle school there. I went to high school there. So I was very fond of the city. Mostly, you can call me a local. But yeah, it was such a small town, small town feel. And it was great at the moment, especially with how small it was. It wasn't really growing to the extent that it is now. So I would avoid actually driving out to like places like Austin or stuff like that because of how hectic the traffic was. But yeah, no, after a certain point, I just got into a routine of things, and everybody knows how small towns go. People kind of get stuck. You don't really grow. You don't really progress. And for me, I kind of got lost in that after a certain point. So from that point, I started actually going out to Austin, Texas a little bit more to ride my bike, go to Lady Bird Lake and trying to expand myself and, add in those hobbies. But sooner than later, I actually fell in love with the city. So whenever, the 3-bedroom lease that I had with actually my co-host Josh and Eric, who is actually one of our friends that we actually met back in San Marcos, who is currently a firefighter. He's single, by the way. Me and Josh decided to come out here, and we've been living here in the same apartment actually for the past 2 years, and it's been a great ride. So back in Austin it is, baby. All right, so next question is, what got me into bodybuilding? So it's a funny story. I've always been into weights and into lifting, into the gym, etc., etc., but I never really wanted to compete originally. So let's take it back. Around the age of 5, whenever I actually picked up my first magazine, and I remember it being a bodybuilder, and I was like, whoa, this looks cool. It looks aesthetic as shit. So after that time right there, in Austin growing up, then whenever we moved to San Marcos, that's whenever I started picking up weights a little bit more, getting more in tune with it. And then I started playing football as well. So originally I used weights as a tool to get better at football due to me wanting to become more of an athlete, more competitive, since I was always a smaller guy. And I originally did not want to take lifting as serious at one point, just because, you hear a lot how it stunts your growth. And then in high school, that's whenever the coaches, saw some strength in me. They saw that, hey, this guy can bench. He can move some weight. And, actually I was like maybe 115 pounds benching 215. So, I was always benching twice my weight, which is kind of impressive. And then, yeah, they just told me, hey, you should join the powerlifting team. And I did. And I got hooked ever since. So coming out of high school after that, I still carried that fire in me for lifting weights. And I heard about bodybuilding. And originally, because of the 2 categories that they had at the time, which is open bodybuilding, which is to the extreme, they don't have the classic bodybuilding anymore. Like the old days, yeah, it's kind of progressed into a bigger, nastier, freakier look, and something that is, you look up to and you're like, oh shit, like that looks cool, but it's something that you do not want to aspire to be, which that wasn't my case. I did not want to get that big to be an open bodybuilder. And then they also had men's physique, which, with all due respect, I like to showcase my legs. I always have been a guy that's always been like, hey, leg day is important. You're not a bodybuilder if you don't have legs. Well, they usually wear board shorts on stage, so it's very one-dimensional, I guess you could say. Their posings, they limit their posings. So you don't really get to showcase a full physique. So then, around 2 years later, after I graduated in 2016, I graduated in 2014. From that point, I remember talking with one of my good buddies, Warren, whom used to be the former assistant chief of police for San Marcos, and I actually met him at Smack. Side story, Smack, the OG gym of San Marcos. If you've been there, and you know what's up. But it's a very old school gym, very old school vibes, and it's a lovely, lovely gym. If you ever get the chance, check it out. Well, anyways, he had mentioned that hey, they're coming out with this new division, Classic Physique. It's supposed to be more so like the old school bodybuilding days, where they have a weight cap, they have certain limitations to where the physique has to look as classic as possible. And I was like, whoa, that's kind of cool. They get to show off their legs. They don't have to get overly huge. And I was like, okay, maybe I might do a show one day. But over time, as I kept going to the gym, Warren would always kind of, pester me, and I wouldn't say pester, not in a bad way, but he would always, throw it at me. Hey, you should compete. You should compete. You would probably do very well. And that's whenever I just put that seed in my head, like, hey, I'm going to be a bodybuilder and let's see how this goes. All right. So who has been my biggest inspiration slash role model? So there's been a few. I would say my older brother, my third oldest brother, has been, I wouldn't say he's the greatest role model, but he's been a big inspiration just in my upbringing and helping me kind of grow up and, kind of show me things and kind of give me that faith to pursue my dreams of bodybuilding and pursue the abnormal stuff that people don't want to pursue, because typically, you have people that, hey, college is the only way to do this. You get a degree and then get a desk job. And that's common amongst people. And he would always kind of instill that like in me, hey, you can go for it big. And that's kind of where I always gotten my heart from. Like, hey, I can do this. Like, no matter the case, I'm going to find a way. I'm going to do what I have to do. And, we're going to grind. And it's going to be a ride. But he kind of always gave me that mentality. And for that, he's always been a big inspiration for me to, continue to do what I do. In terms of role models, I definitely have to shout out Warren for a fact, because I did meet him when I was like around 12. At that time when I first started picking up, lifting weights a little bit more seriously for sports. But yeah, no, he's always been giving me good advice. Always being someone to lean on in a sense in case I had a question about life in general. And, he would always take the time out of his day to, if I wanted to go to dinner and talk about something that I needed to get off my chest, he would be there to kind of direct me and kind of just give me good advice. And for that, I will always have, a love for that guy. He's definitely been a role model in my life. Who do I hope to inspire through my fitness journey? All right. So, honestly, it originally started with my older brother, actually, the one who happened to be my role model, in a sense, or my inspiration, in other words. Originally, it was to inspire him and as well as my younger brother, because when I remember moving out of my parents' house when I was 17, still in high school, I felt very bad for my younger brother and leaving him behind. So, I just always just wanted to give that power to him. Like, hey, it'll be all right, especially with the circumstance that we kind of grew up with. And then seeing how that affected my older brother as well and how hard it kind of hit everybody mentally within the family. And, I wanted to take like a different route and be like, hey, we can dig ourselves out of this. Like, hey, we can change our mentality. The circumstance that we went through doesn't have to define who we are as a human and how our life is going to go. So it originally started with, wanting to inspire them to do better, to do good, And I wouldn't say for my little brother to do better, but just so he wouldn't follow in the same footsteps that, my older brother or even I was going down at one point in my life. But now it's just kind of lit a fire as well into kind of inspiring the people that have grown up in my shoes, that have, a bigger family where the income is kind of restricted and you can't be able to put yourself in another perspective, in a better perspective, and, where there's always a limitation and stuff pressed up against you. And it's kind of grown into a fire now where I want to, hey, we can do this. We don't have to sit around and let this circumstance define who we are and how we act. We don't have to be malevolent. We don't have to act, rude or bitter towards people. We have the power to change it. And that's why I have started to do what I want to do. And I hope to inspire those group of people. What is my favorite sports team and what sports did I play in high school? My favorite sports team is a college football team, the Texas Longhorns. Go UT. I've been a fan ever since I was a little kid. I can't even recall the age, honestly. I just remember my dad giving me a helmet, and it had the Longhorns logo. And I want to say I was less than 5 years old, under 5 years old. And since then, I've just been a big fan of the Longhorns. In terms of NFL teams or any pro teams, I don't really have a favorite team due to the fact that I more so have favorite players in a sense. I more so root on college football because I feel like it's more competitive. The athletes there are trying to do all that they can do to go pro, so they're giving more of themselves. So for me, it's more entertaining to watch. But for NFL, I like, certain individuals that still have that grit, that still have that fight. And that's why I don't really have a favorite team for the NFL, but just more so favorite players. And, I root for them. Now, what sports did I play? I played football since about the age of 10. I would always, I did the CFPO, I believe they call it. It's a federation that they had in San Marcos. Hopefully I didn't butcher that. CFPO, I believe. But I played with that federation up until middle school. Then I played at, I believe, Miller, my 7th grade year. And then Goodnight, my 8th grade year, which happened to be the only 2 middle schools in San Marcos. Fun fact. And we did have a crosstown rivalry. Those games were always fun. I ended up winning, or my team ended up winning my 7th grade year when I went to Miller against Goodnight. 8-0, I recall. It was a very tight game. And then the next year, I went to Goodnight, and we lost that game, but it was also a very tight game. I believe the score was like 26-24, and I remember getting a few receptions. I got like a long ball. And then in high school, I played football still, but I ended up actually quitting around my sophomore, going into my junior year because I was doing powerlifting. I started doing powerlifting my freshman year. And from that point, I qualified for regionals where I placed 4th place. And since then, I was just like, wow, like I did good this year. And fun fact, I actually got 1st place, my first competition. Then in comes the next year, I qualify for regionals again, and I get 2nd place. Or actually, no, I get 1st place. Because the guy that was ahead of me that was supposed to win by, on paper, he had bombed out. So I ended up winning the regional championship that year, qualified for state, and I got 3rd at state my sophomore year. And then my junior year, I got 1st place again at regionals, and then I actually broke the regional record for bench press 280, which was previously I think 265, and that was in 2013. And that record, actually, fun fact, is still holding to this day. Or actually 2012, I believe it was broken. So it's been up for 10 years, about to go on to 11 years, I hope. But I did go to state. I got 2nd place, and I also attempted to break the state record for bench press, which was 300, but I jumped a little bit too high, and I did not get the lift both attempts, but I did get 290. And then I did not compete my senior year, so that pretty much concluded all the sports that I played in high school. When was my first ever bodybuilding competition? My first ever bodybuilding competition was in 2017, I want to say. It was at the end of May. It was a Texas Shredder Classic. It was a natural competition at the time. So it was drug tested. But I remember doing that prep. I started very very late. I did a 12-week prep, which I at the time did not know, anything or jack crap about preps or bodybuilding or the preparations for it. But now looking back, I definitely needed more time to get more peeled. But I remember just going through that process. The diet that I had, the prep that I had, it wasn't really the prep of a true bodybuilder in a sense, because I didn't really know my body. I was eating very low carbs for an extended period of time. I was probably eating 150 on average for the whole 12 weeks. And keep in mind, I have a high metabolism, so it was very draining. I was only eating 1,500 calories consistently, I recall. And fun fact, actually, during that prep was actually whenever I started getting a liking for ketchup all over again. Because I remember I used to like ketchup when I was 5 years old. However, I remember this one morning I put ketchup in my burger and I just took a bite and I was like, whoa, I don't like ketchup no more. And ever since then, I just avoided it. But because of how low my carbs were, my calories were, my coach at the time, my online coach, he was like, go get burgers and fries and ketchup. So I did. And I was starving really bad, to the point where I was like, you know what? I'm going to eat this ketchup. And I did. And I think it was a spicy ketchup. And oh my goodness, I was infatuated. So yeah, now I love ketchup and I can't get over it. But that was my first show. It was late May. I ended up getting second place. But for some reason, I just didn't feel accomplished. I felt I felt like I could have done way more. So it really lit the fire in me. And that's how my first show went. What is my go-to cheat meal? Or meals, I would say. Pizza, burgers, pancakes, anything breakfast, honestly. Tacos. I really don't discriminate on food, but those right there that I mentioned are definitely my staple for cheat meals. Who is someone that I would like to train with at the gym, dead or alive? So first and foremost, I would love to train again with my older brother, who is currently doing a little bit of time in jail. So I haven't seen him in a while. Probably won't see him in a while as going forward. But he's definitely someone that I would love to train with. Again, those were some good lifts. But for sure, I want to also train with some big time bodybuilders. I wouldn't mind training with someone of the likes like Arnold, even. Someone who has a knowledge. I think Chris Bumstead. I feel like that would be an interesting person to actually train with. And then as well as Branch Warren, who is an open bodybuilder as well, from back in the day, from like 2010 and before that. But he just goes freaking hard. Look him up on YouTube, watch his training, and that motherfucker knows how to train. Favorite genre for me to listen to in the gym? I want to say my top one is rock and roll, for sure. I wouldn't say like too heavy metal, just like Breaking Benjamin, Disturbed, Korn, stuff like that. Simple rock. I also like to listen to rap every now and then, like a little bit of hip hop. But those right there are my top two genres, rap and rock and roll. Do I have any hobbies outside of bodybuilding? Yes, I do. I haven't been exercising them as much, but whenever it's summertime, I mostly like to go riding my bike, like at Lady Bird Lake, or through hiking trails, mountain biking. It's very fun. It's full of adrenaline because at any given moment you can fall, and it just adds to the adrenaline and that danger of just it being such a good experience. And also you get to be in nature, which it's fucking lovely. Also, I like to kayak a lot. I feel like, yeah, anybody listening, try to kayak. It's a very peaceful. That's where I like to go from like my off days and just get some downtime, some me time. And, you can even bring your friends. Like, that's another great thing to do. Like that, bring a little bit of beer. Nothing too crazy. But, yeah, those are probably my top 2 hobbies outside of bodybuilding. How did I meet my co-host, Josh, a.k.a. DJ Keno? So, in that case, I also have to bring up my friend Judah. So, I met Josh through my friend Judah. Originally, I met him at a bar, at a setting, at the porch, I believe. And but the most memorable memory of I think it was the second time that I like actually got to hang out with him more, was whenever I was in my apartment one day. I had just gotten out of this relationship like a few months back, so I was a little bit, a sad boy for a little bit. And I remember Judah came over, and it was a Wednesday night, I believe. We were supposed to go country dancing, and then Josh came in, and he came in with a bottle of wine, which is always stapled in my memory, that wine bottle. But that pretty much opened up our relationship, and it took off since then. Since I would have a lot of weekdays off, Wednesday, Thursdays, Tuesdays, I found that it aligned with Josh's schedule a lot. So we would always, hang out. We would go to Whiskey Wednesday. We'd go country dancing, just a little bit country dancing. But I am rusty now, so yeah, I need to go back to country dancing. But from there, we started to develop more of a friendship, and then we got a little bit closer as time went on. I do remember him coming up on his DJ gigs, and back before he started, DJing here in Austin, back in San Marcos at Nephews and such. I'd always go to those events. Daiquiri, I believe is the name of that restaurant, or whatever it was. But I would always show up, and little by little we just got even closer and closer. We were able to talk about stuff that that's more in depth. Like for me, I wouldn't open up much to people. It's still kind of hard to, in a sense, but I would always confide in him, and then over time that strengthened our relationship more. And it just got to the point where we both had dreams, and he kind of lit that fire under me and kind of gave me a belief, because I never really had somebody to really push me that hard or believe that I can do stuff. And it vice versa. Like I always told everybody before, it's like he always had the strength in the weaknesses that I had. What I lacked, he was more so putting me in that out of my comfort zone to to strengthen those weaknesses. And I love you, brother. So yeah, that's how I met Josh. Don't want to get a little bit too sappy, but yeah. Alrighty, guys, that concludes my interview. Thank y'all for watching. For those that watched all the way till the end, I hope y'all had fun getting to know me as much as I had fun, answering these questions. But yeah, after this, we're gonna start releasing a few more, podcasts, a little bit more content. So stay tuned for sure. We're gonna have a few more DJs coming up that we're gonna interview, me and Josh, and we're also gonna have a couple of bodybuilding experts coming onto the show. So stay tuned and get ready to learn some stuff, because we're gonna bring it.